Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. But we are joined by a very special guest, lead editor for the Hogs, Haven, Mark Tyler. How you doing tonight, sir?
What's going on, guys? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It is a special day. A lot has happened since we have last recorded. I said on Twitter the other night, on Tuesday night, apparently Ron Rivera is like Santa. He waits for everyone to go to sleep before making moves and dropping presents in our lap. First thing I have to ask you, Mark, what grade would you give Ron Rivera in this front office so far with free agency?
Well, I'll tell you what, Kyle, I was not the happiest camper, as many of you guys saw when we signed Fitz. Nothing against Fitzpatrick, but I just thought that we were going to swing a little bit bigger, maybe go for a younger guy that had a little bit more potential and upside. My philosophy right now is I'm going to throw him in a slow cooker and I'm going to let it marinate. And listen, probably come around spring training time, I'll warm up to that. But that was a first little knock on that free agency for me. But I tell you what, when we landed Samuel and we ended up, making a play for Jackson, that things just fell into place. Samuel was one of my top guys. I was a Juju guy, to tell you the truth. I was probably one of the few out there that thought Juju would fit very well into our offense. I get the stigma around him, dancing on people's fields, but he's a young kid, 24 years old. So, but I was very happy with Samuel. I think he's going to make a huge addition to our offense, give us that needed speed, make sure that we can't have a safety hiding over on McLaurin the whole time. So those two picks, I think they were great signings. So right now I give us a solid B.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm just going to jump right into it because I saw some of your tweets, and I think I know the answer. But since Washington signed Fitz, do you envision Washington taking a quarterback at some point in the draft, or do you think that they could still go after a young guy, or what do you think happens with that?
Yeah, so I think that's the most interesting dynamic of this whole situation is he's set up to be a mentor. He's set up to be a bridge quarterback. So I don't think there's a better time if you're going to move up for your guy, and it's got to be your guy. Yep. But if they identify a guy there and they say, hey, listen, we want to move up to, I was doing some homework earlier. I think 7 is the spot that we can move up with Detroit. There's history there with Hurney. Yeah. I think you could see Trey Lance sitting there at 7. Definitely. So he would be a guy that I would go for because he has, he didn't play. I think he has a year and a half of college ball. Maybe not even. I think he
a year and one game.
Right. Yeah, and that one game this year wasn't too great either.
Right.
But give him some time to grow. Let him mentor behind a guy like Fitz, and I think he could do phenomenal things in this offense. He's almost like a mini Cam to me with a better arm.
Right. I like that. I like that comparison. Kind of sticking with the draft. Now that they've addressed wide receiver, they've addressed cornerback. Where do you kind of see them going next in the draft? And do you see it defensive, offensive? What's your kind of thought?
So I think there's so many different ways that we can go in the draft. Obviously we've got a quarterback for the year. So if we don't move up for a quarterback and we say, hey, we're going to take our shot next year on one of these guys coming out, and they stay pat. Listen, I'm one of the few that say you cannot have enough good offensive linemen on a team. So
right.
For us to sit there at 19, if we see Darisaw sitting there, I think that's a no-brainer pick for us. Moses is going to be 30 years old. He's got 2 years left on his contract. We could restructure him to make some more cap space, but we don't need it right now. But he's not going to be playing that much longer at a high level. He's already had ankle problems. We don't really have a future left tackle on this team. So I think that would be a great spot. The one guy I'm intrigued by, I know he's not going to be there at 19, but I can dream, is Kyle Pitts. He would make our offense dynamic.
Yeah.
You talk about positionless football, and we have a couple guys already that fit that bill. Samuel fits that bill. But Kyle Pitts coming in, he's a jumbo wide receiver that's going to run. He can get vertical. He can run any route in the route tree. So he would be intriguing, but like I say, I don't see him being there at 19. The other guy that I've talked a lot about lately is Rashad Bateman. And he took a year off last year. But if you look at his 2019 film, this is good to any receiver out there, playing on a team that didn't have a ton of offensive weapons around him. And
told you, Kyle.
He can go up and get the ball, man. He ran a 4.39 the other day at his pro day workout. I think someone clocked him as low as a 4.37, but at 6'2", 215, you put him on the outside, you let Samuel focus on the inside, McLaurin on the opposite side. I mean, how are you going to guard those guys?
Right.
That would just be unbelievable. So that's kind of the three that I'm looking at for the draft right now as maybe my top guys. But I'm not going to rule out linebacker. There's a couple of linebackers that I like in the second and third more of going linebacker in the first, but just say that a guy like Parsons slips. I mean, that's a dream pick for us.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely insane if he actually got there, because that's a shoe-in fit right there. Now, my next question for you is, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, there's a lot being said. I know the older quarterback, and a lot of people are saying, we should probably go with the younger. But how do you see Ryan Fitzpatrick fitting in with this offense? Why would they bring him in to be the quarterback this year?
So I've heard good things about Fitzpatrick when it comes to being a locker room guy. First of all, I think Ron wants high character guys, so he's a high character guy. Second of all, he's smart. He's a Harvard grad, so the kid can pick up an offense. I mean, he's been in 8 different offenses. This will be his 9th, I guess, going into his year 39 season, if we want to say it that way. But he's a smart dude. He gets it. Everyone's going to love him in that locker room. So he's going to come in there. He's going to endear himself to the team. He's going to go out there and sell out. I was watching a clip that someone put on YouTube today of him going out and leading on a sweep and blocking.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's my dude. That's my quarterback. So I think he'll fit in with toughness. I think he'll fit in with smarts. But he's also going to press the ball on the field. And we haven't seen that here in a long time. Right. So I think we're all anxious to be able to get that ball more than 30 yards down the field. And listen, I love Alex Smith, the person, but the quarterback just wasn't doing it for us.
Right. It's definitely going to be a huge difference. And I think Washington fans should be excited about that. It's going to be night and day compared to last year. But this has been a pretty big offseason for us. I mean, you just look at some of the players that they signed. PFF has us rated as the best. We've improved our team the most so far this offseason. How do you think that this offseason differs from the big off seasons by like a Vinny Serrato or Bruce Allen? Do you think that this one's different?
Well, the biggest thing, and we were tweeting about it the other night with a bunch of different people, but you didn't see leaks. And for me, it was so refreshing. You didn't see all these leaks. So, in the past, the agents used us. They'll put out a leak and, hey, the Redskins are on this guy. I better up my offer. Right. So we didn't see that. I kind of thought that we would make a bigger splash a lot quicker, but then I understood why, because the receiver market wasn't moving, and that was like the one area that we really needed to focus on. I still think we can make a lot of moves in free agency. I mean, linebacker is a huge need right now, and I think there's probably what I have identified as like 4 linebackers that fit our system really nice, who are still floating around out there and can be had for modest deals.
Right. And, I'm going to kind of fast forward into the season, a little preview into next year with them adding Ryan Fitzpatrick. It should potentially add a little bit of more balance offensively and defensively going forward. So do you see them at staying put at 7 wins? It's the first place schedule, so it's going to be a tough one going forward. But do you see them possibly staying put at 7, lower wins, higher wins with the addition so far that they've made?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think right now we still need a couple pieces. I mean, I still don't think that defense is complete. They had a ranking of, I think, 3rd or 4th overall last year in overall defense, but those numbers were a little bit misleading because early in the season, we gave up, 4 games in a row where we gave up 30 points or more. Yeah. So there's a lot on that defense that can still improve. We're going to have to hang our hat in that defense if we want to win. And I think we're going against a couple quarterbacks in that division that we can do that. Listen, I'm not sold on Hurts being a game guy that's going to be able to bring your team back in the 4th quarter comeback. Danny Dimes hasn't been Danny Dimes since his first year. So I don't know what we want to call him right now, but I don't think that team scares us unless they do sign Galladay. So who knows?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's going to be us and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are loaded. Every year they come in loaded. They end up doing something to shit the bed. So we'll see what happens this year. But for a win total right now, I mean, I'm going to put us at 9 wins. I think we can get to 9 wins, and hopefully that gets us into the playoffs.
And it should. I've said many, many times, I think winning the division is going to be the marker there. I'm saying if it's a good season or a bad season. Now, one of the big, huge splashes that happened after Ryan Fitzpatrick was William Jackson III being signed for a 3-year, $42 million deal. So my father-in-law was texting me. He still thought that the Darby leaving was a huge loss, that he didn't sit well with him. Is that an upgrade in your eyes? And I know William Jackson, when he was in Cincinnati, played a lot of man coverage, and Jack Del Rio last year was doing a lot of zone coverage. So do you, one, think that it is a big upgrade from Darby? And then how do you think that he'll be used in this system?
So I've always liked Darby. I mean, I always thought Darby's biggest downfall was the injuries and couldn't stay healthy. So when we saw him stay healthy last year, I think we saw the true Ronald Darby. He fit nice into that system. We played a ton of cover 3 last year. So we played a ton of cover 3. We played a little bit of man over. He mixed up some red and black coverages on the backside. But with Jackson, you're going to have to play to his strengths. So he is a press man guy. He's long. He's athletic. He can run with anybody. We saw him run with McLaurin last year and knock that ball down on the deep shot. So I think we're going to have to, flip our mentality a little bit. And Del Rio is going to have to say, all right, listen, you want to go out there and you want to man up against our best receiver? We're going to play a little bit of press man and, jam that kid and let our defense get to the quarterback. So I think we're going to have to see a little bit of a philosophy shift. But you have Sweat coming into year 3. You have Young coming into year 2. So those guys are maturing every day, and they're only going to get better. So if that quarterback has less than 3 seconds to pass, that's a win for us.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I love the William Jackson signing. You talked a little bit about the versatility on offense. Curtis Samuel, when he was in Carolina, he was kind of used as a gadget type player. He's played running back in high school and college, and so it was kind of new to receiver. Took him a little bit to catch on. But how do you think he's going to be used in this offense with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic? Do you see them putting out packages where all 3 of those guys are on the field at the same time?
Oh, 100%. And that's the most exciting part of that. You
Right.
can put them in the slot. You can use them on jet sweeps. You can put them in the backfield. I can imagine 2 backfield guys split, him and Gibson or McKissic. They're both running angle routes out of the backfield. How are you going to cover that? It's just going to be unbelievable. But he can also play on the outside. So I've been a fan for a long time of a big slot receiver. Michael Thomas played a lot of snaps in the slot. Keenan Allen played a lot of snaps in the slot. So if you want 2 speed guys on the outside and fingers crossed that Harmon comes back healthy or AGG, I wouldn't mind seeing one of those guys lined up in the slot.
Yeah.
And you go Logan Thomas on one side, AGG Harmon on the other, and then you put the 2 speedsters on the outside and with a running back like McKissic or Gibson. I mean, where are you going to go? How are you going to cover that? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of speed on the field at once. So it sounds great to me. A guy that wasn't retained, a guy that has been beloved in this city and in the organization for a while was Nick Sunberg. How did you feel about them not retaining him, and how do you feel about Dustin Hopkins coming back?
So Nick was a great guy. I mean, had so many people that I had read tweets on and people who had interacted with him personally and just talked about the high character. So it always hurts to lose a guy like that. A guy who was dedicated to his team, who was dedicated to his city. It really hurts to see a guy like that go. As for Hopkins, I had mixed feelings. This goes back a few years. We had a couple easy chip shots that we missed. The game in London will haunt me forever.
Oh my God!
I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah, that one is that one still stings. But listen, he's been our most consistent kicker for how long, and we haven't been able to say that for so long. So I guess we have to take the highs and the lows with Hop. Hopefully last year and those missed kicks were to do with his injury and not consistency. So I'm just hoping to see a little bit more consistency, and maybe getting paid will help that out. But listen, make your 30 yards and under, make your 30 to 40 yards, and we'll give you a 60% on over 50 right now. I'll take it.
Yeah. And it looks like right now, Mark, our biggest need for the Washington football team is linebacker. And Ron Rivera previously, I think last week, said that if he couldn't retain KPL, Kevin Pierre-Louis, that he wanted to get somebody younger and that had the same type of skill set. A guy that is returning is Josh Harvey Clemens, who kind of has that skill set of being the kind of multi-gadget kind of linebacker. Do you think that he's going to have a big impact in this defense next year?
Yeah, I was a little bit upset that, we hadn't seen a lot of him over the last couple of years. Obviously, playing the 3-4, he really didn't fit into that scheme. He was kind of a positionless player, plays safety a little bit in college, but he's bulked up. So we saw him bulk up to 240 pounds. And then we had COVID hit and he sat out for the season. So I'm hoping he comes back. The kid has speed. The kid has versatility. I remember watching film of him when he came out. He had loose hips. He could open his hips and run with people. He could carry a tight end. Is he going to be the answer? I don't know. I think I have a little bit more faith in some of the guys that are on the open market right now, like a guy like Anthony Walker, I think fits his defense perfectly.
Yes.
He's a guy that I've been talking about, and we could probably get him for $5 or $6 million a year on a 3-year deal. It's a 25-year-old kid. Going to be a coach someday. He's that smart. He's another coach on the field, and he can play the mic. He can play the Sam. You probably wouldn't put him at will because I don't think he plays really, really great in space, but he's not a liability by any means. So that's a guy that I would target. And the draft has a ton of guys this year.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the second and beyond, you're looking at, a really, really heavy linebacker class like Collins, if he goes into the second round, Bolton. The guy I love is Jabril Cox, the North Dakota State kid from LSU. Love that kid. I think he could be a tremendous
freak.
Yeah, will linebacker or Mike. You can put him in either one. He's only 230 pounds, but the kid can run and he can hit. And then you got a kid like Surratt later on in the draft. If you sit there around to the third, you can see a kid like him go for us. I mean, he's an athletic kid. We used to be a quarterback. So I think there's a lot of options at linebacker. Hey, Quan Alexander's out there. I would take a shot at him. He's young. He can play multiple positions. The one guy I liked last year, and I was championing for us to sign him, was Campbell from the Falcons. So he went to the Cardinals 1 year, and now he's a free agent again. So I want to say 27 years old. He had a hell of a year for the Cardinals. I mean, he killed us in the game we played. So.
Right. Yeah, that's you're definitely right about the linebacker class. I love this linebacker class, especially Chaz Surratt. But switch gears a little bit, and you can just answer this one real fast. Do you think that this offense can be a top 10 offense in the NFL?
Wow, that is tough. We got to get a running game. So if we can get a consistent running game, I think we have the ability to do so. It's all going to come down to, we pass blocked last year a lot better than we run blocked, in my opinion. Yeah. But when Sheriff came back and we started clicking, things were going for us in some of those games. Continuity is going to be huge. So we're bringing back our offensive linemen. If we can bring back all 5 guys that can stay healthy, we get a running game. I don't see why we couldn't be top 10. We definitely have the weapons and we have the ability to improve in the draft. So, they're there.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned running back because I was going to ask a running back question. Gibson was my guy when we drafted him in the 3rd round last year. I was telling these guys, like, they were kind of like questioning it. I was like, look.
In my defense, we had Darius Geis. Right?
Yeah. And AP.
That's true. But I was like, look, he's going to be an all-around weapon. He's going to kill it. So what do you expect from him going into year 2? And 2-part question. They just retained Lamar Miller for 1 year. Would you rather draft a guy or go with Lamar Miller as kind of that 3rd down kind of Peyton Barber role?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'll talk about the Peyton Barber and Lamar Miller signing. Miller was on our team last year, didn't get any carries. So we knew the name. I don't think he's a pounder. I think he's more of a patient runner who can hit a hole. I think he's good in his own scheme. Hopefully he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear in his body. Didn't get a lot of carries last year. So that's going to be good for him. Barber, he's a little undersized for that big back role that we play, but he plays it well. So I have no problem, bringing a guy in there. Running backs for me are becoming a dime a dozen.
Yep.
So I don't really like to use a high pick on a running back, 3rd rounder or later. If we can find a good steal, a good versatile kid that can catch the ball in the backfield, like you saw with Gibson, like you see with McKissick. But going to Gibson, I remember watching the Penn State-Memphis game that year in the Rose Bowl. And I watched it over and over because I've never seen a human being play like Micah Parsons in that game. I've watched so much football in my time, and I've never seen a guy all over the field like that. So I'm watching that game over and over, and then I start to see Gibson flashing a little bit. He did some jet sweeps. He caught a couple quick balls in the slot. I'm like, this kid's pretty big for a receiver. I better do some more homework on him. And then obviously when we drafted him, that's the game I went back and watched a couple of times. I'm like, this kid's got some serious ability. He can be special. Yeah. So I think he's going to have a monster year this year. I think he's going to see many more catches out of the backfield. They're going to utilize his skill set a lot more. I think he can easily be a 1,000-yard back, chipping an extra 500 yards receiving, and you're looking at a beast with 10+ touchdowns.
Logan Paulson told us he thinks he can be one of the top 5 backs in the NFL. He says he has that much ability.
He does. He's still learning. the kid never really lined up.
Exactly. He's still young.
Got better as the season went along.
Has so much tread left on the tires too.
Yeah, and the patience. You started to see him develop patience, and once we saw that, things started to click.
Yeah.
And now, Mark, to wrap this up, my last question for you is: the Washington football team right now remaining cap space by Spot Track is about $6.8 million left in cap. That's not talking about maybe if they restructure with Sheriff, getting him an extension, being able to space the money out, or possibly change with Landon Collins later down the road post the June deadline. But do you think that Ryan Kerrigan, because there's been nothing said about him in the open market, we haven't heard that much, do you think there is a possibility that Ryan Kerrigan could come back and be that backup rusher?
Oh, that's a tough question. I want to say, yeah. My heart says I want to see Ryan Kerrigan retire a Redskin. My head says no, because he still feels he can play at a high level. He sees these guys out there that are 32, 33 years old making high impact plays, and he thinks he can do the same thing. So I think he's going to get an opportunity to go to a team and, maybe put 2 or 3 years in and finish off. But I do hope he comes back and retires a Redskin. I just don't see us being able to give him the deal that, let me just put it this way, the deal he deserves to stay here. Right. We can make the money. Listen, we can restructure Moses. I mean, there's a lot of ways we can make some extra money on this team, but I think he wants to still go and be a starter. So I'd be happy to see him, finish his career strong somewhere else and then come back and retire and put him in the Ring of Fame.
Yeah, I wholeheartely agree with that, which is one of those questions I saw today. I said, oh, that's a good one. I want to ask Mark that. Well, Mark,
oh, that's cool, yeah.
I can't thank you enough for being able to come on. My father-in-law loves the Hogs Haven. He's always sending me your articles. I enjoy reading your articles as well. You've done a great job this far, so I really appreciate you taking the time out, because this was a notch on the belt for us for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. It was great to interact with you guys, and hopefully we'll go on and be able to celebrate a heck of a off-season draft in 2021.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Going to the playoffs next year. All right, Mark. You have a good night, sir.
All right. Thank you,
Enjoy,
Mark.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with Mark Tyler of the Hogs Haven, which was a great interview. That was great.
He's the man.
Yeah,
he's the man.
Yeah.
He knows.
Smart dude, man. I like him.
Nobody knows Washington football better than Mark Tyler.
No. And so before we go on to the other part of the episode where we're going to have our fan questions, I want to do a quick rundown of what has happened as of late. It looks like Washington has signed former Carolina Panther center Tyler Lawson to a deal. It looks like that's just a depth piece. Hasn't started a game in 2019, but in 2018 he started in 3 games. And so, look, this might be one of those Mike Matzko kind of just depth signings, but this brings a question. What's going on with oh my goodness, now I can't
Keith Ishmael.
Keith Ishmael, the draft pick that they had last year. I think it was the 5th round that they selected him in.
I think they're probably just depth, just in case. You never know. And
Chase
Rivera
Warrior just got an extension during the season.
And Rivera always talks about competition. So I think it's just that maybe they didn't see enough from Ishmael last year like they thought they were going to. Maybe this will kind of light a fire under them and be like, hey, you got to earn your spot, man. You got to come out ready to play.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna hit it at. Is I think that they saw little bits and pieces of maybe his potential. I know they were like kind of switching him out at guard, had him playing guard, and because obviously mine wants his players to be versatile. So I definitely think that it's a depth piece and a depth piece. Can't even talk today.
Mike Tyson.
A depth piece, and I definitely think that
football team.
Yeah. Trying to light a fire under his ass and maybe get some competition going at the position, or at the backup position, I should say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and speaking of competition, looks like David Sharp is returning to the Washington football team. If you guys remember, I think Washington traded with the Raiders for him during the season last year to bring some depth at tackle. And then Danny Johnson is returning, who is a corner, but also is a return man. So I know that you're happy about that, Reed, hearing that Steven Sims most likely won't be returning kicks this year.
Yeah, well, as soon as we brought in Curtis Samuel, I was like, well, unfortunately, there goes the Steven Sims writing on the wall. So, what are you going to do? I hope he's gone.
Unfortunately, Danny Johnson only really kind of returns kicks. So the punt return spot is still open for your boy Steven Sims.
Let's hope not. That chapter is shut on that.
Yeah. Hey, look, I got to give credit to the Washington football team going to get Ryan Fitzpatrick and then William Jackson for their price points. I mean, people were talking about that was the 6th overall prospect for them in the free agency, and Washington went and signed him. And look, I know a lot of people are going to say he doesn't really match up with the cover 3 kind of zone scheme that Jack Del Rio likes to run like he did last year. But look, someone brought up a great point. When Jack Del Rio was with the Raiders, he liked to blitz the zero blitz a lot, which is you're blitzing possibly 6 guys and then having everyone in man-to-man coverage, William Jackson fits that mold and that formula to a T.
Right. Yeah. Jack Del Rio knows what he's doing. Or Ron Rivera knows what Jack likes to do. There's a reason that they were okay with letting Darby go for less money. They've had their eyes on William Jackson, and I think it's a fantastic signing. William Jackson, first of all, he's just better in my opinion. He could be a corner. He could be the number 1 corner for this team. 100%. He was used at times out of place in Cincy, and just having a defensive front like this, like people will get on him about the last couple of years and how his coverage kind of dropped off from 3 years ago, but he's never had a defense like this with the talent around him. And I just think that that's going to be huge for him. I expect him to possibly have a career year and be one of the better cornerbacks in all of football.
Yeah. And we saw that Kendall Fuller towards the end of the year and towards the middle of the year started to get beat a couple times, was getting a couple penalties here and there, wasn't playing. I guess I would say his best football at the time, covering the number 1 receiver for the team. So with them bringing in Jackson, that gives them the chance to let him cover the number 1 receiver, follow that guy, release a little bit of pressure off of Fuller, and let him get back to his kind of previous Washington football team years when he was here before the trade.
Yeah, and look, dude, I said it on Twitter on Tuesday night after we had uploaded the episode and everything, and the William Jackson news comes out, and I'm just like, dude, Ron Rivera just took a grenade to our episode, pulled the pin, and just placed a grenade right in our episode, because I talked about them looking at J.C. Horn in the first round, who's a lockdown corner who you could step in right away and be able, and literally that's what William Jackson is. He's a lockdown corner, plays press man, he's long hands, and he's going to take away your number 1 wide receiver, and that's exactly what William Jackson is going to do. So I'm happy they did it. It's just like the timing was terrible.
3 steps ahead of you. 3 steps ahead of you.
Right. Little known fact, I did some research on William Jackson. You know, him and Xavier Howard went to the same high school. Imagine being a high school wide receiver and being like, I'm going to go up against William Jackson and Xavier Howard? Okay, cool.
Looks like we're running the ball 40 times.
Yeah, I'm not touching the ball. All right.
Exactly, dude. Look, I think that's what's building here for Washington. I think Ron Rivera, I talked about it personally, and saying that Ron Rivera understands that the defensive front really helps out the secondary, especially the corners. It makes them look really good. So they didn't need to go and spend that money on Darby. They blew that out of the water. And I think what Ron Rivera is doing here is he's building the best defense in the NFL. And I'll say that confidently that's what's being built here right now, especially with what could possibly be coming down the pipeline with linebacker in the draft. There's a lot of depth there. They're going to be able to get somebody that can come in and help and contribute at the linebacker position in the draft, because I don't think there's any discrepancy about it with their moves so far. They haven't done much at linebacker. It's the one position that they have not touched at all, and it's one of the biggest needs.
And there was already a need before they lost Kevin Pierre-Louis, and then losing him. I mean, there's a lot that they got to do still. I mean, but I trust them. They know what they're doing at linebacker. If anybody does, it's Ron and Del Rio.
Yeah, and like Mark said, there's a lot of depth in this draft. There's like a lot of second-round guys, a lot of third-round guys that can come in and contribute right away. So, I mean, maybe they're going to go best position available. Maybe they're going to go Rashad at 19. Maybe they'll trade back, get a linebacker in the first round. Who knows? But like you guys said, they're definitely going to address it. And once we get look, there's still a lot of guys in free agency as well, like Mark mentioned as well. So I definitely think they're going to address it. I think they're just going to wait for maybe like that third, fourth wave of free agency and then address it in the draft as well.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And you mentioned the first round of the NFL draft. And let's go to our fan questions. And the first one's going to be from Freddie Ham of the HTWR podcast.
Fredster.
Yeah. So I'll start with you, Reed, with this question. Will we go linebacker in the first round or quarterback?
I think Washington's going to go linebacker. I do like Mark Tyler's theory about us possibly trading up for a quarterback, especially only having Fitz on a 1-year deal. You have to get somebody who's behind him, but I still think that you can get that guy on day 2. But and the fact that they haven't done anything at linebacker yet leads me to believe that they are kind of waiting for the draft, or maybe they're going to sign another veteran, because I still think they need a couple linebackers, to be completely honest with you. So I think that they're still going to go linebacker. I think linebacker is more likely in round 1.
What about you, Hall? Do you agree with Reed that most likely it's going to be linebacker over quarterback?
Yeah, I do. And it was probably 2 out of 3, maybe even 3 for 3, so we'll probably all be wrong. But, yeah, I definitely do think that's possible, especially if
what about wide receiver?
Okay, wide receiver over linebacker. I know you're not a big Bateman guy, but I mean, look, Bateman on the
Bateman's a
outside with
stud.
Terry and
Stud.
Samuel in the slot would be crazy. But I will say this though, I'd probably still go linebacker just because they already dressed it with Samuel. I know he's not the typical outside guy, but
Yeah.
he can line up on the outside. He's a burner, so he can burn you down the sideline. He can obviously be using the slot as well. And with the so much depth in this draft with wide receiver, we're going to get into that with our prospect breakdowns. At least I will.
So will I.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah. So, but yeah. So I definitely think it's more likely is linebacker, and more likely than that, I would probably go offensive tackle.
Yeah, I like that. But the thing is, for me, I do think it's going to be linebacker, especially if a guy like Michael Parsons is possibly there. That's the avenue because that's your Luke Kuechly there. And we've talked about it many, many times. Ron Rivera wants to get that kind of linebacker in here to kind of make that defense go over the top, to make it the best defense in the NFL, and that kind of player can do that. If not, I've said it many, many times, Freddie, that I think that the best possible thing you can do is trade back in that first round. If somebody is willing to do that, and that way you could get some more picks for the later rounds and do something there. I know Davis Mills had his pro day today, and he looked really good. Obviously, every quarterback's going to look good in their pro day, but the fact is you don't need to mortgage your future by trading up in this first round, in my personal opinion, for a quarterback. Now, if a quarterback does fall to you at 19, there is a question there. Why is that quarterback falling to you at 19 when there's so many quarterback needy teams in the NFL right now? That should be a glaring warning sign. So for me personally, out of all the moves that they've done so far, I think linebacker is more probable, Freddie, than quarterback at this point, and that's just my personal opinion. That's a great question from Freddie. Now, Orange Crush, who had the great question last time on Tuesday, he said,
Orange Crush?
Yeah, Orange Crush 92.
I drink those every summer. Orange Crushes
Like
are
my
my
favorite
go-to.
drink, so
I got some in the fridge right now.
I
never
get
forget Catherine did.
ridiculously drunk off of those. So
They want to know, can you explain exactly what Washington's offense's scheme is and what kind of defenses or teams is the Washington football team designing to counter? And I'll start with you, Hall.
Well, they're designing to counter, I guess, like the Giants defense is pretty stacked, pretty good. They just re-signed Williams. They got pretty stout linebackers and Blake Martinez.
got Bradbury.
Bradbury, exactly. I would assume we're probably going to add there to the defense in the draft. So when you got guys like that are a great nose for the football and the linebacker and the defensive line, you got use a lot of jet motions, a lot of pre-snap motions, stuff like that. A lot of positionless players on the field. If that's where the NFL is kind of going nowadays. So it's all about the matchups and the mismatches, and that's what Scott Turner's offense is all about.
Yeah, and you're 100% right about that. For me, what the scheme is right now, Orange Crush, is, what was the issue last year with this football team? And that
Steven
was
Sims.
and that was this is Steven Sims. But it was being able to push the ball downfield because this offensive line actually graded out really well in run blocking, especially Cornelius Lucas, but they struggled in average per carry. And that's not because the offensive line wasn't doing enough what they had to do. It was because defenses weren't respecting the long ball, so they were playing up at the line of scrimmage, making it very hard to run the football with Antonio Gibson, even though he had great success. So what happens now with Ryan Fitzpatrick and adding Curtis Samuel with Terry McLaurin, you're now having to respect that deep ball. It's going to open up a lot of things right inside there for you. And you guys brought up a great example with the Giants and their great front, being able to push the ball outside and out wide. That's how you're going to beat them. You cannot beat them by running the ball through the middle. You're going to have to do it by creating a lot of space. And adding Curtis Samuel to this offense does that exactly. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick being able to throw, I call him a poor man's Brett Favre. Just willy-nilly throwing the ball whenever he can. What's a cover three? That's what he's doing. He's just tossing the ball out there, and that's the kind of thing you need.
That's the thing. He's said that too. He knows what kind of quarterback he is. He knows that. He's like, I'm a guy that's going to throw it downfield. We know that based on the fact that he's played for a third of the NFL, and he's done that everywhere that he's went. The guy just loves to push it downfield. You can't hate him for that, and that's a good thing. That's why we brought in. You look at the speed on this team right now. You have three guys on offense that are going to be starting that run a 4-3. It's just Fitzpatrick's going to love this. He's going to love the 6'6" Logan Thomas. They're trying to do the polar opposite of what they were last year, and they want to push the ball downfield.
Yeah, and I will say this. I don't think this is Orange Crush. I don't think this is designed for going against defenses. I think they realized against Tampa in the playoffs. And looking at the Cowboys offense last year, your defense is great. It can really stifle guys, but you're going to have to be able to put up points. And this is essentially what they're doing, is going to be able to compete with possibly Kansas City next year with kind of being able to put up points. As great as your defense is, guys like Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're going to find ways to get the ball down the field. They're going to find your weak point because there always is on defense. So what this is this isn't geared towards beating a defense. This is geared to keeping up with other offenses. And this gives them a chance to be able to score a lot of points and stay in a lot more games, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's an offensive league nowadays, so you got to bolster your offense up to, like you said, kind of give your defense a type of a shield or a little bit of protection. Get a little bit of protection for your defense. Next thing you know, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and the boys, they can eat all day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this isn't the early 2000s anymore. So just, that you can't get by strictly with defense. You got to be able to put some points up regardless. Just because that's just the way the NFL is nowadays. I mean, the calls all favor the offense. They want to see points. They want to see yardage. So it just is what it is. You got to score points.
Yeah. And the funny thing is Hall had brought up Ryan Fitzpatrick earlier in the offseason. I think it was about a month ago. And, at first I was kind of bullish on it, but then I thought about it. And later in the pod, I addressed it. And I said, Hull, you're right, because think about it from this aspect. Imagine if they do go ahead and draft a guy like Davis Mills or Kellen Mond in the second or maybe mid-tier rounds. What you essentially have now is the veteran, older vet in Ryan Fitzpatrick who can play right away. You then have two mid-level vets in Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen who can step in and do well. But then you also have the guy that you're grooming. So you generally, you're going to have three tiers of quarterbacks that are meshing together and can step in at any time and help you win football games. And I think that is a great recipe to have as a Washington football team, because it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. You have all three different age groups there, and I think that's a really, really smart way to go about it. I can't guarantee they're going to take a quarterback in the draft, but yeah, I would love that kind of aspect from it.
Is that a real analogy used in that situation? Throwing spaghetti at the wall?
No.
I've usually heard that for bad things about sex and stuff. Oh man, it was what spaghetti?
Well, no. You've never heard that when you're making spaghetti to test if the noodles are good. You take the noodles out, you throw it at the wall.
I'm more of a ramen noodle kind of guy. I don't really.
Essentially, what people do is they throw the noodle at the wall to see if it sticks. If it sticks, it's good to go. If it falls, it's not ready yet.
I've never cooked anything outside of a microwave.
I figured so when you asked that question. I'm usually terrible at the analogies. Now, the next question is from Tony Franchise. All the top free agent tight ends are essentially gone to New England. So what options are left do you feel are the best fit for the Washington football team, Hall?
Well, I just saw that earlier today the Houston Texans released Darren Fells. That's a big body target. That's a big body tight end. A great red zone target. Deshaun Watson loves hitting him in the red zone and the end zone. He's not the best blocker, but he's an average blocker. So that would be a guy that you could pair up with Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas kind of being the more athletic guy, and then Fells being the bigger body type of guy. So that could be a guy. Or like we said we can go in the draft with Kenny Yeboah, I think that's his name.
Take my dude, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, him in the fourth, fifth round, somewhere around there. Maybe a guy like Tommy Tremble out of Notre Dame. It's getting a lot of runs. So yeah, a couple of ways they can go. But if I had to pick, I'd probably go with probably the younger guy in the draft, maybe a guy like the dude out of Miami,
Brevin Jordan.
Brevin Jordan, exactly. So there's a couple ways it can go, but I would probably go to the draft and look for a guy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. With as much cap space that they have right now, I think that the draft is the best way to go. Brevin Jordan, I just don't think he's going to be around for that second-round pick at 51 for the Washington football team. That's why I think Kenny Yeboah is probably the best bet, best bang for your buck there. He is a vertical tight end. He ran away from Alabama multiple times, was able to score touchdowns off of it. He is a great blocker. He's not phenomenal. He's not Pat Fryermuth from Penn State, and he's not Kyle Pitts. But the thing is, you can get value for that, and he can be a contributor. He's faster than Jeremy Sprinkle, so he's going to be able to bring you some competition at the tight end spot, especially at that number 2. I know John Keim talked about the tight end that they're looking for is a vertical threat that can block, and that's Kenny Yeboah, personally. Now, Tommy Tremble from Notre Dame, that's another guy, but he was primarily used as a blocker and was used more on drag routes and stuff. He's not really a vertical threat running away from DBs, but that's another option you can go towards in the draft. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, I think the draft is pretty much where you kind of have to look now at a tight end, just because if you look at the free agents that are still available right now, I mean, like Tyler Croft, Jesse James, Tyler Eifert, Jacob Hollister, Darren Fells. I mean, some of these guys, they could be decent number twos. If Dan Arnold is still out there, he played for I don't think he is.
The Cardinals.
I mean, he's a former wide receiver. Yeah, actually, I think he
Yeah.
is still out there, despite what Wikipedia says. He's somebody who's interesting because he's a former receiver. He's big. He knows how to get down the field. He can be used. He's still young and he's raw. Maybe he's somebody you could see as a vertical threat, but the whole blocking aspect, you don't really have that down yet. So I don't know. I think you kind of have to look in the draft for number 2 tight end at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the only recipe, especially with the cap space that they have at the moment.
Right.
Now, let's go with Andy's question. Oi, Burrows
Oi.
from the DC Tweet Team podcast. How much credit does Dan Snyder should he get for all the things that are happening in DC right now, Reed?
All right, mate. Well, let me go ahead. I'm going to tell you, Dan Snyder, he doesn't get none more credit than anybody else will get right now. He's not doing nothing. But I will say, props to him for stepping back, mate, and letting Ron Rivera go out there and do his thing. That was very impressive to me. I don't know what. No, that was cool. That was cool.
You went with it. I liked it, dude. That was a great accent. And I think you're absolutely right about that. I think because we last year had a pod, and I was very adamant by saying, Dan, you just bought a multi-million-dollar yacht. Go out and enjoy the yacht. Leave the Ashburn alone. Let Ron Rivera do business. Let him right the ship. Let him get everything in order. And that's essentially what Snyder has done. You know, obviously, with the Chase Young pick, I remember 1067 blew up about it because Dan had wanted to know about what they were going to do with the second overall pick. And they're like, oh, here we go, Dan Snyder going back in, sniffing around again.
Yeah.
That's different than
Same
him
old
telling
Dan.
that's different than him making the pick. He just wants to know what's going on. That he gets credit for. Taking a step back and being away, it was probably the best thing for him in a PR standpoint.
Right.
Obviously, with everything going on with him off the field, so he needed to take a step back. But that's what he gets credit for. And also for bringing in Jason Wright and for bringing in Ron Rivera. He deserves a lot of credit for having the right mindset and bringing the right type of personality into the building. And that kind of personality is the type that says, shut up, sit down, Dan. We're not doing that. I'm controlling things. He did that the right way. I'm glad that he did take a step back. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you guys. Like, the only thing I would probably give him credit for is him hiring Ron Rivera that year and a half ago and letting him pretty much run the ship, let him do everything and taking that step back. And then on top of that, parlaying that into this upcoming offseason where he's still taking a step back, still not putting his hands into things, and kind of just letting Ron and the guys run, let the football guys do football things.
Right.
So I will give him credit for that, and that's probably about it.
Yeah, dude. I'll tell you right now, I don't think Dan Snyder would be saying okay to Ryan Fitzpatrick. If he was still pulling the strings, I think he'd be trading up for Trey Lance. I think he'd be trading up for Trey Lance.
He would be telling us what to do. There's no doubt in my mind. But yeah, I mean, Snyder, props to him. I guess he finally learned that he had ADD, so he's like, I'm not going to touch anything. Maybe he got prescribed medicine. I don't know, but he's not all hands-on. He's not all handsy and stuff anymore, except for with the cheerleaders. Maybe. I'm just kidding.
Come on, man.
But no, I mean, props to him. He finally took a step back. You know, good.
Yeah, and he does deserve credit for that.
Sorry, Kyle.
No, I know, that's terrible. All right, now Scott Hartley's question, the Inquirer for us. He said, with about $8 million left in cap space, do you see any more free agent moves? Or do we move on to locking up Sheriff long-term that can create more cap space for us and then extending Jonathan Allen, Reed?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what they do. I mean, they have a lot of needs left. I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, but they still have to sign at least another tight end. I'm sorry, they still have to sign a tight end, at least one more linebacker, more than likely two, at least with the draft and stuff. So will they go out and get another surefire starter? I'm not so sure, but last year we saw them go out there and get mid-level guys, and it worked out fantastic. So I trust them with what they do there. If they see something in somebody and they go out there and get them for a low deal, go for it. They still have some. They're going to bring in some more guys. I don't know who it's going to be or when. It might be the second wave of free agents. I don't know, but they are going to bring in some more people.
Yeah, and look, I just want to say, I want to elaborate. I know I keep saying they only have $6 million. I know Scott says they have $8 million. We're adding in the fact that the draft class is going to, by spot track, going to cost about $6 to $8 million to sign those draft picks for what they have right now. So that is adding into it, taking it down to where it is $6 or $8 million. Now, for me personally, I do think that they're done, and I'm kind of, you know, because we've heard people discuss this, saying about Jonathan Allen's extension coming this offseason, And I'm wondering if it has something to do with Landon Collins. Because after June 2nd, I think it is, if they release Landon Collins, they don't have that cap penalty anymore, and they save a lot of money. And I wonder if with that money, they extend Jonathan Allen at the exact same time. I'm not sure if that's available, but that's the kind of avenue I could see them going down. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I definitely think that. I don't think they're done. I think they're gonna probably add a linebacker that's out there, probably for the cheap. People will go back to last year. Obviously, this is around the time that they got a lot of those bargain basement kind of deals and bargain basement kind of players. But that ended up working out. So, yeah, I definitely think that they're not done yet. I think they're going to spend maybe one more player, maybe like I said, a linebacker. And as far as Jonathan Allen goes, I think that I know his fifth year option got picked up whenever the league year started yesterday. So, maybe they might try to get a deal done. I think their priority is going to be probably Sheriff to try to get a long-term deal done first. But worst comes to worst, I think that if they can't get a deal done, they're going to probably franchise him going into the next year and try to work it out from there, or just keep him around for one more year, franchise him, and see what we can do from there. But, yeah, I mean, I would love to lock up J.A. because he's a leader in the locker room. He's definitely a Ron Rivera guy. So, I would definitely want to try to keep him around if we can.
Yeah, 150%. Now, Rio's question for us, do the recent signings change your first-round outlook at all? Should wide receiver be in play, Hall?
I mean, like I said, I
know we already – I want to give the respect to Rio.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier. Like I was saying earlier, yeah, this wide receiver class is like super deep. Super. If not as deep as last year, maybe even a little bit deeper as far as like middle to back end talent in the round. So wide receiver is probably off the board now because I got Curtis Samuel. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking as far as like the offense goes and far as like where they see it going forward. But
I can tell you with utmost certainty that Rashad Bateman will not be taken at the 19th pick because he sucks.
Jesus, Kyle, you're so wrong.
I'm just kidding.
No, but seriously, I do think that if they do go offense, it won't be receiver. It'll most likely be that offensive tackle like Darashaw or something like that, or maybe Slater if he drops. So, yeah, that's where I'll go with it. I think wide receiver is more of a second to third round pick.
Here's the thing. I've been saying that I think that no matter what, they're going to double up a receiver. They just have to. They need more firepower on offense. Still, I mean, Curtis Samuel, as good as he is, he hasn't done much in terms of receiving up until last year. He's a very good guy, still a very good player. It's somebody you want who can definitely be that number 2 guy. But if the right guy's there, I could totally see them taking a receiver still at 19. If one of the big 3 falls, I could totally see them going that way. I still think that their linebacker, you're right, offensive tackle is more likely. But I still think that they'll at least go wide receiver on day 2.
Yeah, 100%. I'm right there with you. I think somebody because I was thinking, look back at their past in drafting with Ron Rivera in Carolina. They liked the big physical wide receivers. Yeah. Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess is another one. And
Fitz has done best with bigger wide receivers.
Yeah,
as well,
and so the guys that I'm kind of looking at are like Amari Rodgers, Nico Collins type of guys in the second or in the third round, fourth round. That's who I could really see them targeting going after. With the big playability there, they kind of give you the other aspect of the wide receiver, and I know that kind of matches up with AGG and Kelvin Harmon and what they're trying to do, kind of the bigger, more possession wide receivers. And
Amari Rodgers is 5'10", by the way.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about but he's not like his play style isn't like Curtis Samuel. You know what I mean? Right. Like it's not like
he's more of a physical wide receiver.
Yeah, he's not like a slot guy predominantly. Like he can play outside as well.
Okay, I thought you were talking about size. I was like,
no, sorry. I meant more as like.
I was gonna wait till he's done to say something. I was gonna be like, he's only like 5.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I should have said it. He's more of like an outside wide receiver than just a predominant slot guy, which is what the draft is really based on. That's what a lot of the talent is those slot guys. So that's what the kind of avenue I could see them going down. But no, I definitely think that this move changes wide receiver out of the first round. And if we're looking at anything, I think linebacker or offensive line. You're absolutely right, guys. Now, the next question is from Mike. With these signings, do we think that the offense has enough to unleash hell on the NFC? Not the NFC East, on the NFC.
I'm going to go with, do they have the potential? Yes. Will they? I'm not so sure. Like, I love the signings. Don't get me wrong. Of course I love the signings. And they have the potential to be a lot better than last year. They should be. I still think that they're a player or two away from really being like, okay, this team is going to unleash hell on us regularly. But I think that they could still be a top 15 unit with this. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and be like, they're going to be top 5. They're going to every week it's going to be 35 points. Like that's just not realistic with this. But yeah, I do love what they're doing so far, and I do think that they have the potential with this defense. Oh yeah, this team was going to be great in the offense. It should only help the offense.
Yeah, unleash hell. I'm not really sure, Mike, to be honest with you, but I do think they're going to be serviceable with what they've done. And I think the one quote from John Keim really said a lot about the situation, because a lot of Panthers fans are saying, well, this coaching staff couldn't get a lot out of Curtis Samuel when he was there. It wasn't until another coaching staff got him that they could get the most out of him. Well, John Keim said they studied that. They studied what they did with him last year, and they're going to mimic that with this offense. And so I definitely think that this offense is going to take a big step forward, like I said earlier, to be able to contend with the Tampa Bay's, the Kansas City offenses. They're going to be able to, not better than them, they're not going to be at the par, but they're going to be able to compete, especially added with this defense and how good that is. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you guys also on this, where I don't think like unleash hell per se, but I definitely think that this will be probably, and depending on what they do a wide receiver in the draft, I think this has the potential to be probably the best offense we've had since 2015 with Kirk and Jay Gruden and the guys. So and that was what Kirk's best year with us when he threw for like over 4,000 yards.
It was a top 5 offense, yeah.
Top 5 offense, exactly. So I'm not going to go as far as that, saying they're going to be top 5, but I definitely expect them to be, if not like 16, like middle of the pack, dead average. Like I'd probably go between 12 to like 15 or 16. You know.
Yeah, I think that's right on par. I don't think you're being homerish at all with that prediction. And a lot of credit, Swift to Punish. I know you asked the similar type of question to Mike, but I want to give you a shout out because you deserve it. You're always liking and retweeting our stuff, so I really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Well, I know we kind of already answered your question about what free
That's
agents.
How you get a shout out with us. You like and retweet any of our stuff.
No, really, dude. Whenever I do like the game commentary, literally Swift to Punish is liking everything that I say all the time. It's a great account. If you're not already, go follow it. Now, let's move on to our NFL draft prospect breakdown, where each of us break down one draft prospect for you guys and highlight their game a little bit to give you a little bit more insight into what could possibly be coming down for the Washington football team. Hall, I'll start with you first. Who are you breaking down in the draft?
Terrace. Yes, I'm talking about named after a street, like the street Terrace. I know that we were texting earlier who we were doing. I kept saying Terrace, but I guess my phone was like spell checking it to Terrace. I was like, oh, shit.
Real quick, Bears just released Kyle Fuller.
Yeah.
Fuller reunion? No. Anyway, keep going on.
It's Terrace Marshall. Yeah.
Yeah, Terrace Marshall.
Junior.
He's the Marshall of the Terrace. Nah, but Terrace Marshall, 6'1" junior from LSU. Obviously, he got a little bit of shine, a lot of shine in 2019 with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Those are the big name guys. But if you look a little closer, studied the film, you'd see a guy named Terrace Marshall out there. Kyle did a film breakdown on him. Great job. Out there balling, making one-handed catches, running a lot of deep patterns. Like I said, he's a 6'1" guy, 200 pounds. He's a big body guy.
6'3".
Yeah, everywhere I've seen has him listed at 6'3".
Oh, shit, I said 6. What did I say, 6'1"?
6'1", yeah.
Yeah, it says 6'3" on my paper. I was looking at 200 pounds.
That's
but 6'3", 200 pounds. 2020, he only played 7 games, but he averaged 100-plus yards per game. He had 10 receiving touchdowns, 15.4 average. He's a mismatch on cornerbacks because of his height. Obviously, that bodes great for our offense because, like you said, Fitzpatrick loves those big, tall, big body, go up and get it guys.
Yep.
See Devontae Parker last year in Miami. He's great at high pointing the ball. He doesn't have like the very, very best hands, but again, he's a great contested catch guy, but he kind of like loses concentration on the easy balls. Like, like a lot of wide receivers do in the NFL. They make the great one-handed catches, a lot of contested catches, come across the middle to wide open dig route, and for some reason they have brick hands. That happens to him sometimes here and there, but you can obviously work on that after practice, during practice, stuff like that. He's a great vertical threat. He has great top-end speed. He's a great straight-line runner. Yep. So if you want to use him like on go routes, a lot of deep posts, a lot of deep digs. The only problem is with that is he hasn't really developed the whole route tree yet. So if you're going to draft him, he's going to be probably a day 2 guy, like second, third round guy.
A Will Fuller type.
Yeah, exactly. The Will Fuller type that where he come in, he's a burner. He just like use him as a deep threat. Yep. Use him to open up the offense downfield, spread the field out a little bit, and then develop him on the route tree as he comes along because If you look at Will Fuller now, he's a top end receiver that can run every single route in the route tree. So I like that about him. He has a lot of potential. And a good thing about Terrace Marshall is also that he excelled against his best competition.
Yep.
So going against J.C. Horn last year in South Carolina, who was their standout wide receiver or cornerback, he had 6 catches for 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. It wasn't his best game all season. His best game came against Missouri, who's not the best defense, probably the worst in the SEC, honestly. But still, to put up 11 catches, 235 yards, and 3 touchdowns is just a stat that'll blow you out the water, no matter how many or how bad the defense is you're going against. Some of his weaknesses, he's not a very super fast, like twitchy type of guy, athlete type of guy. Like I said, he's more of a straight line, top end, like speed type of guy. He's kind of slower in and out of his breaks, which in the NFL, if you're coming out of your break slow, it gives the cornerbacks and the safeties a lot of time to close. Windows close up, batted balls, interceptions, that kind of things. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. He's going to be used as a Z on the outside, which is a need that we need right now. Obviously, Terry McLaurin.
Need the height.
And he works very well out the slot as a Z receiver, like Keenan Allen, those type of guys. And, yeah, my player comp to him would be Tyrell Williams that was with the Chargers for a little bit.
Right, yeah,
that's with the Raiders last year. So a guy that can run the deep routes, a speedy guy that you wouldn't think that, like, he's going to go for 5, 6, 7, 8 catches a game, but somehow you look up, he has 6 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown on you. So he'd be a great addition and maybe on day 2 for the Washington football team.
Yeah, and unlike Rashad Bateman, he actually shows up in championship games and playoff games because Rashad Bateman had, I think, like 4 receptions for like 30 yards in their one bowl game where Terrace Marshall,
Bateman's fault.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, Terrace
Marshall.
Marshall.
Watch more than just 2020.
I'm telling you right now, from the film I've watched. From the film I've watched.
2020.
Terrace Marshall is what Rashad Bateman everyone is projecting to be.
I love Terrace Marshall. Don't get me wrong.
Terrace Marshall was by himself this year. He was by himself this year. Didn't have any help. Had bad quarterback play, multiple quarterbacks, and put up more yards than Rashad Bateman, who was in a similar circumstance. And Terrace Marshall's going against SEC defenses.
And you also got to remember, though, Rashad Bateman last minute decided he was going to play football this year.
Well, also, SEC defenses are not what SEC defenses were. It's more like the Big Ten is the SEC of defenses nowadays.
No, it's not.
Big Ten.
The Big Ten
defenses right now.
Or the SEC of defenses nowadays, yes. You see all these SEC teams putting up 45, 50 points a week. Easily.
That's a valid point.
Go to the Big Ten. They're averaging like 30 points max.
That doesn't mean that their defenses are bad. What defense of the Big Ten would you tell me is top 5 right now?
Ohio State, Northwestern.
Ohio State's defense is ass.
In the country? You're talking about in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, out of the Big Ten, the Big Ten's defenses are not as good as they were. Ohio State was getting thrown on this year. Shaun Wade took a huge step back. Wasn't until Chase Young left that they were bad.
Shaun Wade was never that good to me. He was a
Notre Dame sucks. Michigan's defense sucks. He's not
even in the Big Ten. So you don't even know nothing. Keep going.
My God, I'm Penn State was terrible this year as well. What are you, Maryland? Maryland sucks.
Hey. Well, Penn State loves to get a little behind in the locker room.
I'm not talking about just this year. I'm talking about this is a COVID year. A lot of people sat out. A lot of the top players sat out to get ready for the draft.
Okay, but regardless, we're getting away from the fact. But regardless, the SEC is better. But my guy that I'm highlighting, I know we're getting close to the hour. My guy I'm highlighting is Micah Parsons, who we've talked about because I've done a lot of mock drafts. I was telling the guys pre-recording that for some reason on Draft Network, Micah Parsons over the past 2 days has all of a sudden been available at 19. So there might be a lot of buzz around the league that there's a good chance that he'll be there. And if he is, the Washington football team needs to go ahead and take that to the bank because that is the Luke Kuechly type, sitting at 6'3", 244 pounds. In 2019, he sat out 2020. For 2019, 109 total tackles, 52 total solo tackles, 5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles. The guy is all over the field. He can play in the middle of the field in coverage. He can come up and stifle in the run. He can also is lethal in the blitzing. And we talked about bringing William Jackson here with the 0 blitz. When you're blitzing those 6 guys, guess what? Who else is going to be blitzing? Those linebackers. If you have Micah Parsons and Cole Holcomb rushing up the middle in that 0 blitz, a lot of credit to the quarterbacks if they're able to get the ball out because that's going to be really tough for defenses. I think Micah Parsons is arguably is the best linebacker in this draft, but a lot like with Jonathan Allen, Brian Arakpo, like we talked about, slipping to Washington when no one expected them to. there's a good chance with his character concerns that Micah could come here. And with the leadership of Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, I think that he'll be nipped in the butt and he'll be a great professional for this organization. Micah Parsons is a first-round pick by far, and I hope he's there at 19.
And he's talent-wise, he's top 5 in my opinion. He's so good. Micah Parsons is so fun to watch. I'll do mine fast so that way we can hop on out of here. But I'm going to go with Tylan Wallace, wide receiver from Oklahoma State. Tylan Wallace stands at 5'11", 193 pounds. He has played all 4 years at OK State. He's an all-around good wide receiver. He's got a nice quick release. He's very tough. He makes adjustments towards the ball. He's actually a surprisingly good blocker. He's just one of those hard-nosed throwback type guys. He's fairly good after the catch, and he's very good in the slot. He's another one of those guys who's just a very solid slot receiver that you can get on day 2, possibly even day 3. His weaknesses, he's not necessarily a deep threat. He doesn't necessarily have burners. I mean, it's been reported that he's been timed at 4.45 at OK State, which is pretty good. But for somebody who's 5'11", 193, I mean, you'd expect him to be a little bit faster. And he's not big-bodied for his frame is just not. There's nothing really there that really stands out. But he could be dangerous.
He's got great hands.
That's what I said. He makes adjustments. He catches everything that comes his way. I mean, there's a reason that he's been productive for the last 3 years. He's had over 900 yards receiving each year. Especially 2018, he had almost 1,500 yards receiving. And my comparison for him, he could be a Tyler Boyd, Sterling Sharp type if he reaches his potential.
That's a great comparison.
I like the Sterling Sharp comparison.
It's Sterling Shepard.
Shepard, I said Sharp. He's definitely not Sterling Sharp.
But yeah, so he's someone who I could definitely see being available, and depending on how they see using Curtis Samuel, maybe he's another one of those wide receivers that you could see on day 2 or 3.
Yeah, and that's a great one. When I watched Tevin Jenkins' film, Tylan Wallace just jumps out.
Tevin Jenkins is so fun to watch.
Yeah, so much fun to watch. Right. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you to Mark Tyler of the Hogs Haven for stepping by. We're going to have some great guests for you guys next week. I don't expect us to have any big news to talk about next week. We'll just be able to kind of highlight the draft for you a little bit more. Maybe next week we'll expand to doing 3 prospects each for the NFL draft and breaking down. All right, everybody, I'm Kyle.
Is he frozen?
Are you guys going to say anything?
Yeah.
I said I'm Kyle.
I know. I was waiting for Hall. He looks frozen.
Oh, yeah, he does look frozen. I thought you were talking about me.
No, he is frozen. No, Hall is frozen. Okay. Real fast, who do you look at when Hall? Are you gonna go?
Yeah, I was frozen, but I'm back now.
Who are you?
For what?
I said I'm Kyle, like we're leaving.
Oh, I don't even know what's going on. I was frozen, so I couldn't even. But I'm unfrozen now, so peace.
Real fast, who do you guys look at when you guys are doing these? I always stare at myself. Is that weird?
Yeah.
I look at the person talking, which is probably why people think I'm always like sleeping and shit. So
I just stare at myself. I do that on FaceTime too. I don't look at the other person.
Right. All right, everybody. We'll catch you guys next week on Tuesday. We'll have a brand new episode for you. All right, everybody. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everybody? It's your man Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. I hope you enjoyed the last video as much as we did. If you like what you saw, please like the video by clicking the thumbs up symbol and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us continuing to do what we do and making great content for y'all. If you want to stay up to date on new episodes, make sure you click on the notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.